Oh, what a mess. This is Neil Schneider from Meant to Be Seen. Welcome back to my messy basement. Let me just go on the record right away. I am insanely jealous because I am unfortunately going to miss E3 this year. My flight was booked, my hotel was booked, but, life seemed to rain down and I had to cancel the trip. But fortunately, our MTVS's Chris Roberts will be tweeting away from the show, so he's going to be able to try all kinds of stuff. We're really excited to hear from Chris on this. I'm personally excited because even though I can't make it out to E3 this year, I really think I've heard the biggest and perhaps the most important story out of E3, which is that there is going to be a virtual reality Star Trek game being put out by Ubisoft that lets 4 people cooperatively command a Federation starship in VR, which I think is amazing. I've played pretty much every Star Trek game to date, Bridge Commander, Klingon Academy, even that silly Star Trek arcade game that you had to put quarters in. I've tried them all. And if they could get a really good Star Trek game in VR form, that will just make my day, because I'm just a huge Star Trek fan. And, all I could say is, even from a distance, I am excited. And I really want to hear back. I hope Ubisoft does demos. I want to read about it. I want to see videos because I am so excited about this. Here's something else to be excited about. So we've got a wonderful interview with Wanda Meloni. Wanda Meloni is the executive director of the Open Gaming Alliance, or the OGA. And we're very proud that she's also an advisory board member for the Immersive Technology Alliance, also known as the ITA. And of course, the ITA has its ITA VR Council. So we're very proud to have Wanda involved with this as well. Why is Wanda here? Well, Wanda is going to talk about women's issues as they pertain to the video game market. Very interesting stuff. Partly talking about women working in virtual reality in the gaming field, as well as content targeted towards women. So really, really interesting stuff. Also, from the OGA and the ITA point of view, we're very interested in the viability of virtual reality. So she's going to be talking about that as well. Really interesting stuff. So we're going to be back with more right after this. To my immediate left is Wanda Meloni, Executive Director of the Open Gaming Alliance. Welcome to the program, Wanda.
Well, thanks, Neil, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, the OGA, it has a wonderful history behind it. I mean, today is the Open Gaming Alliance. Previously, I understand it was the PC Gaming Alliance. Tell us about this organization. What do you do?
Sure. So I'm the executive director. I also sit on the board. But basically what we do, we are a nonprofit trade association focused on the business of the games industry. So our goal and objective is to support the entire ecosystem and make sure that we are providing information, networking opportunities, research, and collaboration with existing partners to really support and make sure that we have a thriving industry in the game space.
Well, really good stuff. And you've been with that organization some time. I mean, I think it's fairly recently that you were appointed to executive director, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I had been involved with the organization when it first started in 2008, early on. And then I stepped back, but now I come onto the board. And then after I came onto the board last year, they made me executive director just so we could kind of move things along and kind of give it a little bit more direction. So I'm super excited about it. I get to meet lots of great companies and great developers and great technology partners.
And if I may say, it's a big honor that you're part of the Immersive Technology Alliance as well, that you're on our advisory board. So that's tremendous.
I'm thrilled about that. Yeah, that's new.
It's a big.
So I'm looking forward to working and being part of that group. I think there's a lot of really exciting things you guys are doing.
So if I may, and this is something I'm going through a learning curve on, and I've learned a great deal from you, is that, how would I put this? There's there's a big interest when it comes to women working in virtual reality and content targeted toward women working in virtual reality. There's a whole area of expertise in that space. And I was hoping we could talk a little bit about this because I think it's one of your specialties. You've been, this has been an interest for you directly. Can you tell us a little bit about your work in this field?
Sure. Well, I mean, I just have always been a big proponent of making sure that there's equity in the market. So from the games industry, there's been a lot of ups and downs in terms of getting more women in the industry to work in the industry, and then also what we found is over time that 50% of the people playing games at a consumer level are women. So it just means that there's sort of a disconnect between the content that's being created and the consumers that are playing those games. So I think when we move into something like VR and AR, what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of excitement, more than I've ever seen, for a technology where women have really sort of grabbed onto it and feel that they can have a significant role in shaping the technology and the platforms and the content, which to me is really exciting. So, the idea is that we can build this up together. And I think what a lot of the women tend to be gravitating to are things around new ways of storytelling. That seems to come up a lot. And sometimes that's more on the cinematic side of VR, but also for VR, there's a lot of really great women doing in the technical space and design. So I think it's, for me at this point, it's not really a difference between, men and women. It's just having equity in terms of making sure that we have lots of different types of experiences, lots of different technology and stories that are available to consumers and companies.
So is there a challenge where there's really not enough female representation in the market? I mean, is there something that needs an urgent fix? Are there things going on that really need to be addressed right away?
Yeah, well, that's a hard one. I mean, the representation, across the board, we have fewer women in technology, fewer women in engineering and programming. But it is interesting in that I've mapped the games industry to the film industry, and it mirrors the film industry quite a bit. The highest level of exposure for women tends to be in the producer role. So whether they're producers for films or games, that tends to be the highest area where women are currently in the market. And when you get more technical, that drops down to like 2%. And currently, and I did some research on game engines, and currently we're running at about 3% of women are using game engines, like the Unity and Unreal game engines. So if we could, and to me, those are the glue. Those tools are the glue for anything happening in VR. So if we could get more women just up to speed on how to use those tools, it would pretty quickly change a lot, I think.
So it sounds like there's two sides to this coin. There's one side is the expertise, to get more women directly involved in the market, creating content, stories, putting out products and being part of that creation process. There's the other side of the coin too. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Is the content itself, is it being effectively targeted that it's appealing to women as well as men? Are there any changes needed in that regard as well?
Yeah, I don't think that's an interesting issue when you start talking about directing content for one gender over another. I've seen research on this, and I've found that certainly their content for men can be very much focused on men, but content for women, women don't generally like to be segregated with their content. They like to be able to have, they don't like things wrapped in pink, for example. That's not necessarily what they strive for. And even when you're watching a movie, and sometimes they're just, all the commercials are definitely geared towards women. I think that is, I think that sort of plays into a predefined mindset, and I think women just don't necessarily buy into that. I know there was a company that had done some research even with kids, and they found that the girls, when they saw the ad on TV with the game that was more focused on for girls and it had more pink, they actually did not gravitate to it, but they did gravitate towards the more boy-centered ads. So there's been a lot of research in that. I think, in terms of the games industry, we could probably learn a lot by looking at sort of some of the research that's been done.
Okay, good stuff. So no, I'm only naming the brand name just as an example. But do you think, like Call of Duty? Do you think women like Call of Duty equally well as men? I mean, is that an example of content that's specifically targeted, or do you think women enjoy the same games that men do?
I think. I think there are definitely more men that play Call of Duty, but there are women that play Call of Duty. I think they just want to feel included a lot of times. They don't want to. It's at that point when they sort of start feeling like they're excluded, when they have to change their name online to play and things like that.
Okay, well, good stuff. So, what would you like to see happen if we're just looking at the virtual reality and immersive technology market right now, but from the point of view of women in the field, content, I guess I don't know if you want to say targeted towards women, but let's say if we're looking at both sides of the coin, what are some deliverables you'd like to see happen within the next 2-3 years that would be meaningful for women?
Yeah, I'm very much focused on sort of business trends, and I think there are a couple of things. One, having more access to the tools and the game engines and training for different types of people, because I think that will eventually lead to new stories, new games, new products. And then also I would say that it would be great if we could get more investment opportunities for diverse projects and diverse teams. That tends to be an ongoing issue in terms of a lot of people. So looking at how we can build maybe some type of a fast tracking opportunity for pitches for diverse teams, and some funds that really will open up a little bit and be supportive. Because right now, angel and VC funding is women and minorities make up less than 5% of all the VC and angel funding that's given out. And if you're a Black female, it's like less than half a percentage point. So those numbers are just so low, and it makes it really hard in terms of trying to start a business. But I think ultimately that's what that's kind of what needs to happen, is that we need more people just going out and starting businesses and being the change that they want to be.
So good stuff. So, you were talking about investment, and I know we were talking about content by women, possibly for women. I mean, I think you were being generic there, a little general there. E3 is this week. And we're seeing, of course, a lot of big titles. We're going to see a lot of big titles, big announcements by the big brands. But we're in that startup phase too, where there's a lot of independent content makers that have, jumped into virtual reality to get the ball rolling, if you will. Now, from the point of view of the Open Gaming Alliance, and of course with the Immersive Technology Alliance, what are the challenges you see as far as viability is concerned? I mean, what are the big challenges that you're working to overcome?
Well, there's an issue, I would say, with the ecosystem in terms of how do we sustain the viability of the indies in terms of making sure that they are able to make money off of the games and content that they create. We're seeing that the headsets are taking slower to get to market than we thought, and ultimately the numbers have dropped. But I think those were probably over exaggerated in the first place. So I think that the issue is more, how do we make sure that we find a way to create a market that will be sustainable for them, so that they can make not just one game, but multiple games, and make a living at it too. I mean, that's ultimately what they want to be able to do. They want to be able to make a living what they're doing, and I think right now a lot of them are just putting an investment in with the hopes that they'll make a return and be just kind of first to market with what they're doing. So there's a lot of risk. And then I think, there's a lot of talk around standards again, which I kind of love that part of the market, because we're all trying to work together to collaborate on how to best pull together some of the technology pieces that are needed.
A good comparable, I think, and I know we've discussed this before, but maybe you could share with the viewers, is the mobile market. I mean, there is a comparable here. How would you describe the mobile market, and how would you compare that to the upcoming virtual reality market?
It's very similar, because I studied that quite a bit, and it was fascinating. So we had the console market was really just peaking, and at the same time, mobile was just starting to come into play. Then we had Unity with this game engine that was just dedicated for mobile at the time, and it enabled a lot of indies to come in at a very reasonable cost and create games for mobile. So it was a new platform, new tools, and a lot of people in the console side of the market started moving over to mobile, and they were thinking, oh, it's going to be just like console. We've got these 3-year cycles, big teams, and the reality was it was totally the opposite. Smaller teams, fast iteration on content, analytics, so very different. And a lot of the companies that first started it, that jumped from console to mobile, couldn't make that shift. And so we saw a big fallout. I worry that we might have the same thing happen now with VR and AR and as a new platform, that a lot of people are kind of moving to that, thinking that it's going to be sort of comparable to prior platforms. And I think, again, it's a whole new platform, a whole new paradigm, how we monetize, how we look at discovery. These are things that aren't going to be the same as the last platform. But we already have this, jockeying of, who are the platform players, and the platform players are the ones that are going to own the content in terms of how it gets distributed and being able to take a piece of the pie. So people are already trying to get control of the distribution pipeline, but before it's really sort of been set. And I think that's a little dangerous.
In what way?
Well, it's dangerous for the developers, for the content creators. I think they need to be really careful about where they place their bets.
Okay, good stuff. Wanda, this has been great. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I know it's been super fun. I'm envious that you're going to E3. I think it's going to be a great show, and I may call on you to report back on it. Okay.
I would love to do that.
Thank you for watching Neil's Messy Basement. Now, normally we would have had a new episode last Friday. It didn't pan out. And because this week is the week of E3, it just didn't seem right to be an episode behind. So in addition to today's episode, we're going to have another episode later this week. If all goes to plan, it will be online this coming Friday. So that being said, if you'd like to be a guest in my messy basement, by all means, email me at neilsmessybasement@mtbs3d.com. Even if you don't want to be a guest, if you've got ideas for the show or things you'd like to see on the program, email me. Every bit counts. We love your feedback. And of course, we're looking forward to making things happen. So on that note, we will talk again this coming Friday. Thank you for watching.